Hi, Matthew. Hi, George. Thanks for joining us here today. I think if we could start with a quick round of intros. Matthew, do you want to kick us off?
Fantastic. Thanks, Chays. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. I'm one of the co-founders of Voyc. Started Voyc 5 years ago to help financial services firms ensure that all their customer interactions are handled with consistency and care. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. George?
Hi, everyone. My name is George. I'm the data science lead and data analyst at Voyc, and I work with issues dealing with scoring, reporting, and sometimes scripting.
Cool. Thanks, George. I'm Chase. I'm the senior operations manager at Voyc. I've got a keen interest in AI. I really enjoy reading about it, following it up, and seeing what's happening in the new advances within AI in our space. Thanks, gents, for joining us here on this podcast about the future of AI agents. Cool. So I want to jump in, and I think if we start off, can you provide a brief overview of any recent evaluations on AI call center agents? What are your thoughts about AI call center agents?
So, Chase, great question. So, what we're seeing is there's two sides to this. There's the customer service side, and then there's also the compliance side. From a customer service point of view, it can make the experience a lot better because customers won't have to wait to speak to anyone. So they'll immediately be able to speak to their insurer, their lender, and get the help that they need without waiting for 3, 4, 5 minutes. So we're seeing that as a huge advantage. Then on the other side, there is the compliance risks of making sure that whatever happens in that conversation is adhering to the company's policies and is accurate, the information that's provided.
I think that's an excellent point, Matt, because I mean, when you immediately started off saying that the AI agents will be able to give a lot more insights and a lot quicker without that human in the loop, my immediate thought was, how is this AI agent going to give that same custom hand-holding feedback that's specific to my use case and not a generic? So how can I actually make sure that the information is accurate? George, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Maybe I can point out what is motivating call centers to move to using AI agents, and that's cost reduction, productivity, better customer experience, let's say more consistent customer experience. And from that point of view, following on what Matt said, is that because of that, I mean, moving to an AI agent, it brings with it its own compliance issues. So unlike a call center where you have got many different agents, with an AI, you have a single point of failure. And because of that, we have to think about it differently.
So I think George would bring up a good point there with that single point of failure. Right. So how would you think about it differently? What are potentially, and Matt, you can jump in here, some of the key things that we could do, because AI agents are here, they're here to stay. So we need to find out smart ways that we can manage it and control it to make sure that they are compliant. So have you got any thoughts on how we could do that, George?
Well, yes. Maybe I can begin by looking at maybe what the failures could be that we at Voyc actually do. So there's a whole range of functions that we perform when we're looking at compliance. And those include, for example, were the calls of a acceptable quality? So was the interaction between the agent and the client satisfactory. So here we would have alerts. We look for word searches and things like that, things that might have been mentioned in a call. And obviously, an AI agent will not swear at a client, but it could say things that might not be acceptable. Yeah, so that's one thing. Next is checking whether the AI followed the script. And here, this is where our scoring comes in. And did the AI gather the information that was necessary in that call? And then the sentiment analysis, which looks at, how did the customer experience the call? So again, that goes into the compliance issues.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
I heard they making sure that the agent is that the AI agent is giving accurate information and saying everything that they're supposed to. Obviously, with the current versions of the large language models that we do have access to, hallucinations has become quite a topic of concern. Matt, have you got any thoughts about hallucinations of AIs? George, maybe something from your side. Either one, you're welcome to jump in. For our listeners out there, an AI hallucination is when the AI actually comes up with its own information, which is factually incorrect. And that could be based on numerous factors, whether it has limited training on that, whether it's been has bias, because remember, all of this information has been trained off of the internet. So there's natural bias that can slip in there. So to prevent hallucination, what steps can we put in place specifically for these AI call center agents?
Great question, Chays. So sometimes I feel like the times that I need the AI or ChatGPT to be the most correct, the most accurate, in those times, it's the least accurate. It's a weird situation that I've experienced where when I need it to be accurate and I've asked it something really difficult, it hasn't come through with accuracy. Maybe just an anecdotal experience, but that's been my experience. And I think the risk that lies to companies is you do get complex cases that come through to your customer service environment with questions that people haven't been able to find answers for online or through your app. And now they've called in to get an answer for that question. And it's those interactions where the risk naturally, even if it was a human, is much higher. And we're now asking an AI to cater for those unique questions, which your business might have never been asked before. So the ways to put controls around that is to keep having a quality team that is reviewing these interactions, supported by a call monitoring solution so that they can do everything and cover everything. It leads me to another question, though. How do we train or correct? Because with human beings, if someone is not performing on that day, or if they're not at work, or if they need training, they can come off the phones and get that support. But what do we do with that? George said a single point of failure. George, maybe you can answer. What would companies do? Would they turn their customer support off for the day, or?
That's an interesting question. So I think maybe it helps to look at it where the difference is. With the coaching, it's a human problem. So in other words, you talk the QA or whoever is responsible for coaching will sit the agent down and they'll go through a call and see what went wrong with the call. With AI, it becomes a technical problem. You have to give it more data to train on to overcome the deficiencies that might have caused that error. And so it becomes, you won't solve it internally. It's something that you'll have to give to the vendor and say, okay, we found this error. This is what it should be like. and then they would have to go and train their models to fix the problem. Yeah.
I mean, that's assuming they're using a vendor as a vendor that's using a large language model. Some of these companies are building their own AI chatbots using their own localized large language models. So I think the loop is closer there. But yet again, with a large organization like OpenAI, there is regulations that come in play. There is certain things that, because they're so big, they have to adhere to certain rules. Whereas companies building their own large language models internally might not necessarily have to adhere to that same strict regulations that a company like OpenAI is.
Just on the point, yeah, go ahead, George.
Sorry, I was just going to add something else that, since you brought this up, that kind of makes an AI different from a human agent is that a human agent may know when they have made a mistake. Mm. That is something that an AI doesn't do unless somebody questions it. And again, that's something would factor in our compliance and detection processes to find out when things go wrong.
George, on that point, how do you think humans know when you've made a mistake?
So here now comes the interaction between the human agent, and the client. The client may ask a question, and because of that, the agent may, we all have self-doubt. If we're asked a question we can't answer, and the AI agent may not be capable of that, depending on how it's been modeled. And that's the thing. Not all AI agents are of the same quality.
Yes. And George, when it comes to Chays mentioned on the legal ramifications, what do you think governments around the world are going to want companies to do when it comes to having AI agents? Do you think there's going to be a trend of laws that are coming into effect?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. But I can imagine that, it's something that will eventually happen.
I think go for it, George.
Yeah, Chays.
Now, I was going to say, I think that one of the biggest problem we have, why I think regulation would be needed at some point, is that at the moment, these LLMs and these models that are being used to create these AI agents, so the prompts that are being written behind the background, they're all, from a consumer point of view, from my point of view, from your point of view, it's all it's a black box. We don't know what's happening within that black box. What prompts are being used? How is that agent being trained? Is the data being specified? Is it being ring fenced? So the AI agent that I have for my insurance might be completely different to the AI agent and the experience that I would have from my bank. And needing to know how that agent is going to behave, and that essentially that code of conduct that agent is going to follow, is essential for us to know as consumers when we are being treated, when we are having interaction with this AI agent, we are being treated with consistency and care.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, also add that it brings up privacy issues. When you call a call center, are you consenting to your private information being used in training a model?
Very good.
And what we're currently here sitting, AI is taking the world by storm. AI agents are coming. What do we expect are going to be the trends over the next, let's say, 5 years within the space, and focusing specifically on AI call center agents?
Well, so one thing, just going back to the service experience, the AI agents will be able to handle queries now much quicker than humans, more consistently, and overall providing a better experience, but at the downside of the risk being substantially greater of hallucination and inaccurate information. But if we're talking the customer service side, what I see now is more better routing to start off with. So listening to the customer's voice and saying, this is a 50-year-old male that weighs 50 kilograms. That's where technology is going right now. And then routing it to an agent that might be better positioned to have that conversation with that customer.
I think
based on their...
You've raised a great point, a point that I don't think I had considered up until now, that based on how they sound, what you're doing is essentially profiling the end customer. Now, how do you feel that profiling could be used in a negative way? So that same profiling that could be used to help a vulnerable customer, someone that was of hard hearing, someone elderly in the UK, that same profiling could be used by not so great companies to try and take advantage of people and get the most out of them. So what could be put in place to prevent those type of vulnerabilities from being exploited?
Well, not queuing us up here, but naturally you would want to put in place a quality monitoring solution to make sure that any bad practices like that are picked up. And hopefully, I do believe in the good of people, but hopefully this is used for a positive experience. If someone speaks faster, pair them with someone that can listen to a faster customer. And that person that will listen will be a human. And that's where I think the first change will happen. And then over time, we'll start to see the actual agent being replaced fully by an AI. But quite amazing that today AI is able to determine someone's age and physical characteristics from their voice. And those are things that we as humans can't hear.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, the benefits you've mentioned now over the last couple of minutes, especially with regards to the client servicing space, having consistent answers from AI agents, having a resolution, first-time call resolutions as well. It sounds so great, Matthew. Why doesn't every call center shut down and open up AI agents only? So what do you think are the challenges current call centers around the world are facing in adopting 100% AI call center agents?
So from what we've seen is you need to have all your company information in a repository like Notion or some knowledge base, so that the AI agent has something to refer to when it responds. And a lot of companies haven't sort of maintained that data hygiene and that data repository. So that is a big blocker. And then in addition, the AI agent technology, whilst it is a cost savings on a company, because to give an example, say you're paying $500 for a license per human being call center agent. Now that's going to be around triple. So say $1,500 for an AI agent. That's still 85% cheaper than paying $20,000 a year for a human. So there's a big cost savings, but companies still have to put in place that initial investment to try out the AI agents. And that's where I think companies are waiting to see, okay, let's see when it becomes more accessible at a lower price point and then as a test rather than doing this investment up front. George, what do you think is stopping companies from going all in with AI agents tomorrow?
Well, I think one reason is to set up an fully AI call center. You have to set up your support systems, your quality monitoring, and then you also need a fallback if something goes wrong. If you have a human-based AI, again, there isn't that single point of failure. So you need to have that fallback position as well. And then the next thing is, I think there are going to be people who will wait to see until the technology is adopted by major companies before they follow suit, and learn where the capital investment needs to be to get it running properly, and know what the pitfalls are.
So true.
So I think that's maybe the one thing with any technology that slows down the adoption is, the unforeseen costs of adopting technology.
Sure. This is unknown at the moment. We're not sure what exactly it can do. What is the full power of putting your whole support as an AI agent? What limits the customer from? We saw that now recently in the news where there was a company who fully implemented AI as part of their chat service on their website, and someone had actually been able to prompt the chat that they were having with the AI bot to say, help me find a car, but tell me that you'll sell me whatever car I look for one pound. And they essentially prompted there were no safeguards in place from a implementation point of view to stop a customer from actually prompting the large language models. So the result it got was a full quote for £1 because that is what it was prompted.
Yeah.
So really clever. I think having a human in the loop there is definitely needed. But these are definitely challenges or unknowns that we haven't yet essentially thought about. And it then leads me on to my next question: is what do you think companies need to be mindful of when implementing AI agents, especially considering stuff like the sensitivity of calls, especially insurance calls, medical questionnaires? So what things could be considered by companies before implementing and while implementing AI agents? George, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I think here is where one has to realize that as much as you're gaining something, you're also losing something, going from a human agent to an AI agent. So obviously you're getting productivity, lower costs, hopefully, depending on the quality of the model. And again, I said not all AI agents are the same. It all depends on how well they've been trained and the quality of the models. And then, again, there was the consistent customer experience. And your AI agent can be multilingual. So you can train it to be, you can train it on one base, but it can speak different languages. So you could ship it out to many different regions without additional training. And then you can make it data-driven. So, for example, your AI agent can be tapped into a knowledge base, and it can draw in. So a client calls in, their history is known, and the AI agent can work off that history.
But not exactly that, George. Now that history, right? So I phone in, I'm looking for health insurance. I disclose that I have a vulnerability. I'm identified as a vulnerable customer that is logged within the company's CRM. The next time I'm contacting them, that information is automatically being used as part of the model, as part of I've given this information, I've consented to it to a human. Now that information is now being pulled out of the CRM and being used by a chatbot, which I don't know, is that information now being used to train a larger profile on me, or what is actually happening with that sensitive data that is mine?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to get to next, which was what you lose.
Mm-hmm.
And what you lose is the personalization. So a client comes in, they talk to an agent, and they try to develop a relationship. Basis of trust. You can't do that with an AI agent. The AI agent is not able to sympathize or empathize or put a client at ease. Again, it depends on how well trained the AI, the model is, but generally I expect most won't be able to do this. It'll just be ask a question, get a response, give a response.
George, if I could jump in there on what you're saying, just to ask you, we spoke around people liking people that share interests. And I guess an AI agent doesn't really have interests. So,
Again, it depends on how well the AI agent has been trained. What kind of model is there? You could get a very base functionality that doesn't do any real-time sentiment analysis, and it'll just appear very functional.
Yeah.
But do you think, George,
But-
do you think an AI agent might say, I enjoyed watching the Springboks win the Rugby World Cup yesterday?
Sorry, you were saying.
So, George, do you think, as I'm saying, like, AI agents don't really, people like people that share interests, and an AI agent might not have interests. So, say, for example, you call your bank the day after the Springboks won the Rugby World Cup. Is the AI agent
exactly.
that was the game last night, George? And you're going to have a great conversation. Maybe not.
Exactly. Or you might have, for example, one of the things that we do at Voyc is vulnerability detection. Is a customer vulnerable? Or do they say things that indicate that they're vulnerable? An AI may not be able to, it might detect a vulnerability, but is it able to put the customer at ease? Is it able to use the words that, and again, it depends on the quality of the AI that you have, but that may not, so you kind of lose that personalization.
And you lose that, and you also lose stories. Like an AI agent can't tell a customer a story to put them at ease and say, look, my mom also had this.
Exactly. So it's going to be a very dry experience.
So are we saying that companies can't actually build or maintain the trust that they have with customers because they're moving to AI agents? Like what it's sounding like is that trust is built through the storytelling, through this connection that's being made with a human and a human, and that same connection can't be made with a human and an agent. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yes, I would, at least in the beginning, until customer expectations change.
Yes, great. So I was thinking, like my niece, for example, she's 4. Is she going to want to speak to a human or an AI agent? I reckon she'll pick an AI agent. She'll be like, I don't want a human. Give me an AI agent. I want a quick service. I want this done right now.
Yeah. Well, if you know that everything is going to be done correctly, you might just say, okay, I'm going to trust the AI agent because I believe it's okay. It's not capable of lying. Let me put it that way.
How do you build that trust, though, with the customer? How does it, in this new world where we're going to with AI agents, that trust that your niece will have, Matthew, how is that built for the consumer on a consumer level that they can go, yes, I'd much rather speak to an agent because an AI agent will give me accurate, fast service, accurate information, and be able to 100% resolve my query. How do companies get that trust from not only their consumers, but from the consumers at large?
So I think, and this is, if we look at self-driving cars, for example, that analogy, they are arguably a better driving experience for a driver, a self-driving car. But then the compliance and quality expectations from consumers are much higher. They can't make any errors. The room for error in a self-driving car is far lower than a normal car, even though it's got a much better experience. So I think public perception is much higher with the AI agents. We will have very little room for mistakes. So to build that trust, I think you need to put in place a good quality monitoring and set of standards of quality and what you're doing to make sure that if there's any errors, that customers will be protected. And that leads me into this whole thing around safeguards. Do we think that the vendor of the AI agents can be the one designing the safeguards? I mean, do they really specialize in safety and safe? Do they know what the scope of safe is, or is that limited to what they're providing? Maybe George, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's now a question of who is the safety for? Is the safety for the client or is the safety for the company? I mean, so let's look at it firstly from the safety of the client. Is the AI capable of doing something? You might have some emergent behavior that you never expected. How do you recover from that? So we're assuming a mistake will be made, which is the same with the human, but how do we recover from that mistake? I think that's where the safety should be, and then what's the worst that can happen? And I think if you can anticipate the worst case scenarios, then you mitigate those worst case scenarios. And then looking at it now from the safety of the company, it's more a case now here of, as Chays gave the example, what's to stop anybody from just gaming the system? If you have got hackers out there and they call in and they try to look for a vulnerability, yeah, what can you do against that? Again, here again, it's a case of anticipating the worst case scenario and mitigating against it.
So it sounds like that there needs to be a balance, right? So we've got AI agents coming in. We have human agents essentially no longer being used and being replaced by these AI agents. And instead of losing this talent as an agent, it's sounding like they're going more into a compliance space or into a human in the loop. So you'll have the AI agent doing 90% of the work, but you've got a human agent in that mix, monitoring, helping, assisting the AI agent, taking on the queries that might be too hard for it to answer. So how do we strike a balance, or how do organizations rather strike a balance between AI call center agents and human agents to collectively affect their customer service environment?
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm.
I had one more. Sorry.
So the question is there a way to strike a balance? Like how do agents strike that balance? What is that? Is it one agent to 10 AI agents? Is the human in the loop for every 100 calls? How do we make sure that the AI agent is giving that same consistent experience that a human would do?
I would say that I'll go the other way and say that every client, when they call, they expect an experience that is unique to them. So I don't expect that the call that I have, the interaction I have with an human agent is the same that they have with somebody else. I would expect them to have modified their interaction with me because my situation is unique. Really where we should be going is how do we customize the experience so that every person feels that they're getting a unique interaction.
And
very cool.
And then, George, as we build on that customization and we loosen the kind of rigidity of the AI agents, what is the consequence of that on a compliance side?
Yes. So let's think of it this way. So the way we have it with the human agent right now, we try to make their behavior predictable, but there is some variability in that behavior. So that the compliance process is kind of designed to pick up that variability. Yeah. So with an AI agent, if it's rigid, it'll also, you're not really, so you'll not do compliance, for example, for using swear words. Where the variability might be is the way that the questions that the client might ask. And here I'm thinking of questions that might be off the script. Or something that, let's say we have somebody who decides, well, I'm going to really test out this AI agent and start telling it jokes. How does the AI agent, if a client does that, just to see what they, put this, just try to be funny and see, okay, how far can I push this? How does the AI agent respond? Could be that it could be very rigid and just give the same responses over and over again. Yeah. So what we're really looking at there is, for the compliance point of view, is the AI being gamed rather than, or are questions being asked in a way that manipulate the AI? That the sort of problem shifts from the AI to the client. And the only other aspect of variability is if the AI starts to hallucinate, then yeah. But that would be an outlying, hopefully that would be an outlying experience. Yeah. So striking the balance here, I think it's going to be, I'll push it more towards, checking whether the AI is being manipulated into doing things it should not be doing. And there are going to be people who are going to try it out. The moment, somebody knows that, oh, there's an AI here, they will try to find the vulnerability.
George, how many months, weeks, if not days away do you think we are at Voyc from having that type of consumer in our customer base?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot, Matthew. That's a product question. I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping, hopefully by fourth quarter. And I say this mainly because there are many different facets to this. It's not just, there's a whole value chain that needs to be checked, and yeah.
Sure. For sure. We won't show this clip we'll show it to everyone but the product team.
Yeah. I was just going to say one more thing, sorry, of what might be lost. And this is, it's one of those things that one doesn't realize immediately. That's the unintended consequences of taking the AI route. But it's a long-term problem. So if you look at a human call center, the quality of the agents are variable. So you get some agents that are going to be excellent, and then you get agents who, well, are average. And the learning that happens for an AI agent comes from the experiences of all of these, the mistakes that they make, what they get right, what they get wrong, all comes from this variability of the agents, from their interaction with the human customer. And because we're using a base AI, over time we start to lose the new insights that might come in. Unless there's somebody who actually literally goes in and says, okay, this is where we need to improve it. So that's something to keep in mind, that when you go to the AI, what you're getting maybe is an agent that is between average and good. You're not getting the best. Some human agents are intuitive. They can read a client and they know what they need to do. With an AI, you're not getting that. So you're getting something between Yeah. And to push it to that next level will require a lot of effort. It's not something that comes just with simple coaching.
Great thought.
Great.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that was a great thought to leave us with there, George, as we head to the end of this podcast. So, Matt, in closing, are there any last thoughts on what we've discussed today?
One thing which George brought up, which I thought was really profound, is that single point of failure in an AI agent. Up until today, I don't think I, kind of realize how big of an issue that can be for a company if they've got one AI agent, or essentially, that is serving 100,000 customers, and it has an error, or it drifts, or it makes a mistake. It'll affect now 100,000 customers. So the need for quality and compliance, the problems it's going to create for those teams is going to be immense, and looking forward to helping them in bridging this trajectory into a new world that we're all going to be in soon.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. And George, any last closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I'm just very curious to see what comes in the next 2 years. What I suspect is going to happen is across all the call centers, you'll have the early adopters will just go to full automation, but most are going to be somewhere in between. So a human assisted by an AI agent. Until everybody's comfortable that the AI agent can run on its own.
George, one more question for you. Do you an AI consumer? So think about an assistant calling an AI agent. Who will know before each other who's the AI? Do you think that's the test of who's the best?
Yes. So now here, that's actually a very interesting question. The thing here is we're assuming that there will be an AI agent that will speak on the phone with another AI client, but that's not one. I don't think that's what's going to happen. It's just they'll talk to each other over an API. They'll just be messaging each other, and saying, "I need this. I'm looking for this." Okay, I'll give a scenario. Maybe that makes it more interesting. I've got my phone, and I've got my AI on my phone. Again, I'm thinking into the future, and I say, I'm looking for insurance for this kind of need. And my AI on my phone then goes to a brokerage site where you have all these different AIs. The message is sent out. Those AIs will then provide based on the info. They'll send back a message to my AI. My AI will send back additional information, and then it will look across all and say, okay, these are the options that are available. Without ever lifting a phone, it's all done through brokers. Yeah.
And then George, I know we're up for time, but just thinking of what that does to the data of that AI agent, if that data that it's consuming is being used to improve itself, we lead to a spiral there as well. So how can companies prevent that, making sure that their data is not getting eroded?
Well, that's where the security issues become important. Security and privacy issues become important. And then again, this is something that government will have to regulate. What is an acceptable use of information? And then also, I'm trying to think of a way of putting it. How does it change us? That's for me the big question. So, for example, we're assuming that everybody has access to this, but that won't be the case. There'll be the people who will have the ability to do this, and those who are not. So it has profound impacts on society.
Great.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to see how things pan out in the next 2 years. Exciting times, but also, yes, interesting times.
Exciting times indeed. Well, Matthew, George, thanks so much for joining us today on this podcast. Matt, it looked like you had something to leave us off with there.
Yeah, just a parting thought. I mean, AI only knows as much as it's trained. And AI has never seen aliens on Earth. So when the aliens do come on Earth, that's going to be an interesting time to see how they interact.
All right, Matthew. All right, George. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Bye.